Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlene Benedict for the Newsfirst team.
And I'm Dithmini De Silva. Let's start off with a look at the headlines.
Navy Special Boat Squadron sailor dies during arrest of Indian fishermen who were poaching in the Sea of Sri Lanka. Vijay Dasad challenges Judicial Service Association statement as parliamentary privilege violation. BASL warns against interference in judicial functions under the protection of parliamentary privileges. Bilateral debt restructuring agreements to be signed tomorrow. President informs the cabinet. Fonseca and Partly refute reports of accepting government positions. Rajitha says no invitation extended as yet. Afghanistan sealed dramatic semi-final berth amid hard-stopping run chase.
Have a look at them. It might well be
Taking a look at today's top story, the Sri Lanka Navy conducted a special operation to chase away Indian poaching trawlers from the Sea of Sri Lanka early this morning.
In an unfortunate turn of events, a sailor from the Navy Special Boat Squadron sustained critical injuries due to the aggressive maneuver of an Indian trawler resisting its seizure while in the Sea of Sri Lanka. This sailor unfortunately succumbed to his injuries after being admitted to hospital.
The Sri Lanka Navy conducted a special operation to chase away Indian poaching trawlers from Sri Lankan waters in the early hours today. The Northern Naval Command deployed its fast attack craft to chase away a cluster of Indian poaching trawlers, having spotted they were engaging in illegal fishing in Sri Lankan waters off Kankasanture this morning. The Sri Lanka Navy said that an attempt was made to detain the Indian fishermen who violated the country's territorial waters. The Sri Lanka Navy fast attack craft had moved closer to the Indian vessel, and a sailor from the Navy Special Boat Squadron sustained critical injuries due to the aggressive maneuvers of an Indian trawler resisting its seizure. The Sri Lanka Navy confirmed that the sailor succumbed to his injuries after being admitted to the teaching hospital in Jaffna. The operation resulted in the seizure of an Indian poaching trawler and apprehension of 10 Indian fishermen. The Indian fishermen had set out to sea from Nagapatnam in India.
Even
in the past, Navy officers had to face similar situations when detaining Indian fishermen, poaching in Sri Lankan waters and also chasing away their trawlers. Unfortunately, a sailor was injured in this incident and succumbed to his injuries upon admission to the hospital.
The sailor from the Navy Special Boat Squadron who passed away was Priyantha Ratnayaka, a resident of Hippawa Ibagamur. He was 41 years old at the time of his demise. Priyantha Ratnayaka joined the Sri Lanka Navy in 2004 and showed real promise as a diver. He was father to a 6-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter.
At about 12 in the night, Lahiru had contacted his parents and told them that such an incident had taken place. He said that their son had faced an accident and had fallen from the boat. He said that his hip had fractured and that their son was hospitalized. He then called again at about 2 in the morning and told them that their son had passed away. He had initially joined the catering division. The officers at the Navy had identified his talents in swimming and then he was absorbed to the SBS or the Special Boat Squadron. He was a talented officer. He had even been given foreign training. He is another officer who had brought much glory to the Sri Lanka Navy.
The mortal remains of the deceased sailor were placed at the Jaffna Hospital this evening. Fisher folk in the north expressed their condolences over his passing.
Our Navy only arrested Indian fisher folk who are poaching in the Sea of Sri Lanka. In the incident that occurred in Kankasanture this morning too, the Navy had the option of attacking the boats and injuring them. But they did not do it. All the Navy did was arrest the Indian fisher folk. The Navy officer who passed away is not just a citizen of Sri Lanka, but a hero who protected the borders of Sri Lanka. He passed away when he went to stop foreigners from violating our sovereignty. Ranil Wickramasinghe, when he was Prime Minister, said that if the maritime border is violated, they must be shot at. Now, When he is the president, this incident had occurred at a time when he is doing everything India wants. What is the response of the president to the death of this sailor? Every time when Indian fisherfolk are arrested in Sri Lanka, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu demands that the fisherfolk and their trawlers be released. But he never asks his fisherfolk to refrain from crossing the maritime border. He too should be held responsible for the death of this sailor. If this incident had happened in the Indian Sea, it would have turned out very differently. Indian fisherfolk engaging in fishing in Sri Lankan waters must be stopped immediately.
Meanwhile, Foreign Minister, President's Counsel Ali Sabri told Newsfirst that this incident was discussed during a meeting between the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to India and the Indian Minister of External Affairs S. Jaishankar. The Sri Lankan High Commissioner to India had highlighted the need to resolve the issue regarding the fishermen as soon as possible. President's Counsel Ali Sabri said that the Indian Minister of External Affairs highlighted the need for the fisheries ministries of the two countries to work together to resolve the matter. A total of 214 Indian fisherfolk have been arrested so far this year for poaching in the Sea of Sri Lanka. The spokesperson for the Sri Lanka Navy said that 28 Indian fishing trawlers have also been seized. The Indo-Sri Lanka maritime boundary was set in the year 1974. Then, in 1979, the regulation of foreign fishing boats was introduced and it was meaningfully enforced by the amendment of Act No. 1 of 2018, passed in 2018. However, the issue of Indian fisherfolk poaching in the Sea of Sri Lanka has been growing over several decades. There is no viable solution yet. Fisheries Association point out that illegal fishing by Indian fisherfolk in the Sea of Sri Lanka causes an annual loss of about 10 billion rupees. 6 suspects have been apprehended with 200 kilograms of drugs believed to be heroin. The arrest occurred during a Navy operation on the high seas off Sri Lanka's western coast.
The Navy also seized the multi-day vessel which was used for drug transportation. Captain Gayan Vikramasuriya, the Navy's spokesperson, confirmed that both the drug stockpile and the 6 suspected smugglers are currently being brought ashore.
The Sea of Sri Lanka, the treasure that surrounds the pearl. 8 times our land territory. The Sea of Sri Lanka holds our future. It holds our potential. Let's protect what is ours. Let's call it what it is. The Sea of Sri Lanka.
Parliamentarian Lakshman Kiriyalla, the chief opposition whip, revealed that attempts are underway to resubmit the proposal to extend the service of the Attorney General to the Constitutional Council. Now, it's worth noting that this same proposal, previously referred to the Constitutional Council by the President, was defeated by a majority of votes in the same council.
We have received credible information that the Constitutional Council is scheduled to convene in Parliament tomorrow. The agenda includes reintroducing the proposal to extend the term of the Attorney General, which was previously rejected. This proposal was rejected just a week ago, and its reintroduction in such a short time has sparked various speculations. Historically, no Attorney General's term has been extended through Parliament, and it appears that the current effort aims to use the Attorney General's reputation to extend the term of the current President by another year. This is the latest credible information we have received from within the government. They plan to present this proposal to Parliament, obtain approval and then submit it to the Supreme Court with the intention of extending the President's term. This message is echoing loudly in Parliament today. The President has not yet publicly announced his candidacy for the upcoming election. Although his supporters and those around him are suggesting it, he has not made an official statement. The government is afraid to hold elections. Every time elections are mentioned, the government becomes apprehensive. Particularly 90% of the current members of Parliament are unlikely to be re-elected. New faces will take their place. The current members are contemplating their next steps.
Justice Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa has formally raised a complaint with the Speaker regarding a press release issued by the Judicial Service Association, the professional organization representing district judges and magistrates in Sri Lanka.
Now, the minister asserts that this press release has infringed upon parliamentary privileges. In response, the Minister of Justice has requested the Speaker to summon the President and Secretary of the Judicial Service Association before the Powers and Privileges Committee of Parliament to conduct an investigation and issue an appropriate order in light of the alleged violation. On the 19th, the Minister of Justice addressed Parliament, commenting on various judges and the Secretary of the Judicial Service Commission. In response, the Judicial Service Association, an organization representing district judges and magistrates in Sri Lanka, issued a press release yesterday. The release, signed by President Kegol District Judge Ruwan Dissanayake and Secretary Gaul Magistrate Isurunetti Kumara, addresses the Minister of Justice's statement. The press release by the Judicial Service Association noted that it observed a specific effort to discredit impartial judges is unfolding in parts. The Judicial Service Association points out that one of the steps in the discrediting effort is to create ideologies that will cause personal discredit to the judges who have taken important decisions for the well-being of the judicial system after they are transferred. Additionally, the Judicial Service Association emphasized its unwavering support for the Secretary of the Judicial Service Commission, which is committed to protecting judicial officers from external influencers. The Minister of Justice, Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, submitted a formal complaint to the Speaker today, raising a question of privilege concerning the statement made by the Judicial Service Association. The complaint was also copied to the Chief Justice and the Secretary of the Judicial Service Commission. The complaint referenced a circular issued by the Judicial Service Commission on the 1st of September 2010 and another by the then Chief Justice on the 30th of September 2016, which directed district judges, magistrates and High Court judges to refrain from making public statements to the media. In light of these directives, the Justice Minister noted that the statements issued by the two judges are actions prohibited outside their official duties. In his written complaint to the Speaker, the Minister stated that his privileges, as well as those of all members of Parliament, have been violated according to Section 3 of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act No. 21 of 1953. The Minister of Justice argues that the statements in question were made not within the judicial scope, but based on personal or private obligations, constituting a clear violation of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act. Translation of extracted statement. Quote, "The ultimate responsibility for the judicial authority of the people of the Republic of Sri Lanka rests with Parliament. The courts are responsible for exercising the powers explicitly delegated by Parliament. If the judicial process is conducted unlawfully or abused, it is the responsibility of the Minister of Justice to keep the Parliament and then the people informed about it." End quote. The Minister of Justice stated that while it is the duty of all judges and judicial officials to investigate the facts presented, no one has the right to make malicious statements to the media concerning the disclosure of those facts. Translation of extracted statement. Quote, "More than 30 honourable judges who have been significantly affected by the actions of the Secretary of the Judicial Service Commission have expressed their gratitude to me for my statement. They appreciated my efforts to inform the country about the current situation in the courts, acknowledging the truth of those facts and the genuine oppression they are facing." End quote. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka says that members of Parliament should not interfere with the functions of the judiciary or the functions of the JSC by making statements under the protection of parliamentary privileges. It added that such statements will have serious consequences for undermining the public trust and the confidence placed in the judicial system. In a statement on Tuesday, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka said that it reaffirms its commitment to safeguard the independence of the judiciary and upholding the rule of law. The statement comes in light of the speeches made by the Minister of Justice and several other MPs on the 19th of June during a parliamentary debate. The BASL, noting the statement issued by the Judicial Service Association a day earlier, said that it affirms its support for an independent and fearless judiciary, which is essential for the preservation of the rule of law. It noted that any alleged misconduct on the part of any judicial officer must be first inquired into impartially and, if found guilty, dealt with severely, as the office of a judge is sacrosanct in the minds of the people.
The Columbo Magistrates Court Lawyers Association held a press conference today.
As a responsible minister, he had the duty to address any issues arising within the judiciary through established internal procedures. However, instead of following these procedures, he chose to hide behind parliamentary privileges to launch this attack. We view this as a direct assault on the independence of the judiciary and an attempt to undermine its integrity. If a party is dissatisfied with the court's decision, the appropriate course of action is to seek redress through a higher court. However, this attack clearly stems from political motivations. We assert that these politicians who have already brought the country to ruin should not be allowed to further erode the judicial system, which remains one of the few functioning institutions. We urge these political figures to refrain from undermining the judiciary. We will not tolerate such actions. We call upon the Honourable Chief Justice to resist political pressure. We, a community of 20,000 lawyers, stand united with the judiciary. If politicians continue to make defamatory statements in Parliament about judges and take action against them, it will severely damage the judicial process and hinder its functioning.
Court extended an order against Justice Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa.
The Colombo District Court extended the order prohibiting Justice Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa from serving as the chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and as a party member. The extension was granted during a reconvening of a petition submitted by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party Treasurer Minister Lasantha Alagiyawanna. The extension was granted during the reconvening of a petition submitted by Sri Lanka Freedom Party Treasurer Minister Lasantha Alagiyawanna. Additionally, the court instructed the respondents to submit their objections within the specified time frame. The case will be called again on the 9th of July.
The Election Commission will be empowered to proclaim the date for the presidential election in 22 days.
A special parliamentary session will take place on the 2nd of July.
Maithripala Siriwardena, Speaker of Parliament, announced via Gazette that in pursuance of Standing Order 16 of the Standing Orders of Parliament, he summoned the Parliament to meet on Tuesday, the 2nd of July 2024 at 9:30 am, having been requested to do so by the Prime Minister.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe has informed the Cabinet that the bilateral debt restructuring agreement will be signed tomorrow. Cabinet spokesperson Minister Bantulu Gunawardena provided an explanation during the weekly Cabinet Decisions media briefing today.
විශේෂයෙන් රටේ බංකොලොත් භාවයේ ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කිරීමෙන් පසු අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට
Following the declaration of the country's bankruptcy, the president engaged in extensive discussions with leaders of friendly nations that proved aid to Sri Lanka, including the prime ministers of India, Japan, China and the Paris Club donor groups. These discussions also involved numerous national and international experts. Yesterday, the president presented a detailed explanation to the cabinet about the debt restructuring agreements. Following this, the president authorized the Sri Lankan delegation, which includes the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, the heads of the Treasury and our state ministers, to attend the Paris Club meetings to finalize and sign the relevant agreements tomorrow. The cabinet has given its approval for the signing of these agreements on behalf of the Sri Lankan government. The president announced that all signed agreements and their details would be fully presented to the Sri Lankan parliament. Additionally, he will address the nation to share this victory with the entire Sri Lankan population. Therefore, you and all media outlets will receive detailed information about the debt restructuring process, but within and outside of Parliament in the coming period. After the bilateral signing and subsequent disclosure to Parliament and the President's address to the nation, you will be able to receive detailed information on all related matters. As the government's cabinet spokesperson, I cannot comment on the ongoing proceedings until the agreement is finalized.
Sri Lankan officials and global investors are expected to hold a second round of direct talks this week to agree on the restructuring of $12 billion in defaulted bonds.
Formal negotiations between Sri Lankan authorities and international private creditors on over $12 billion in bonds are set to resume imminently after a group of bondholders signed non-disclosure agreements late last week. The resumption of the talks comes days after the International Monetary Fund Board approved a $336 million installment of the IMF's $2.9 billion program. About $1 billion has already been disbursed. According to Reuters, earlier the group said its negotiating committee included Amundi Asset Management, BlackRock and its subsidiaries, Eaton Vance Management, Grantham Mayo, Van Otterloo and Co. LLC, HBK Capital Management, Morgan Stanley Investment Management, Neuberger Berman, T. Rowe Price Associates INC and Wellington Management. The report by Reuters added that Sri Lanka in April rejected an initial bondholder proposal, citing some of its baseline assessments and a lack of a contingency option in the case of continued economic weakness as two main reasons for not reaching a deal. Sri Lanka plunged into its worst financial crisis in more than 7 decades in 2022, with a severe dollar shortage sending inflation soaring to a high of 70%, its currency to record lows and its economy contracting 7.3%. The IMF bailout secured in March last year helped stabilize economic conditions. The island nation will hold presidential elections by mid-October. The quarterly debt bulletin for the first quarter of 2024 revealed that the total government debt as at the end of March 2024 was $100,184 million. Of this, 57% was domestic debt and 37% is external debt, with 6% as guaranteed debt. Bilateral debt amounted to around $10,589 million and multilateral debt amounted to around $11,716 million. Total commercial debt including ISP stood at $14,736 million.
The Daily Mirror in their headline reported, quote-unquote, another cabinet reshuffle. Accordingly, the Daily Mirror reported, quote-unquote, partly Rajitha Fonseca to join hands with President. It also added, quote-unquote, reshuffle rumoured to occur within the next 2 weeks. Meanwhile, in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, MP Partli Champika Ranawaka said these reports are baseless and unfounded. The MP said, quote, we will not accept any ministerial portfolio. Instead, we'll stand for the benefit of the masses, end quote. MP Sarath Fonseca too claimed that the article published was false. He posted the following on X, quote, I will not be joining the government. In addition to the above, rumours that I will support the presidential candidacy of Ranil Wickremesinghe is completely untrue and baseless. I will not be supporting his presidential candidacy. I request all Sri Lankans to avoid propagating rumours, end quote. In an inquiry made by Newsfirst, MP Rajitha Siriwardena said that he has not received an invitation from the government yet. Director General of Trade Unions to the President, Saman Ratnapriya, expressed his views to the media.
Cabinet සංශෝධනයක් ගැන යම් අදහස් තියෙනවා. ඊළඟ මැතිවරණ ගැනත් අදහස් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් විවිධ අමාත්‍ය දුර වෙනසක් කරන්න ඕන කියලා යෝජනා අදහස් තියෙනවා.
ඒ සුබ පණිවිඩයත් එක්ක විපක්ෂයේ ඇතැම් පිරිස් රජයට එකතු වෙනවා කියලා ආරංචියක් තියෙනවා. ඒක සැබෑයි.
විපක්ෂයේ පිරිස්
Members of the opposition will definitely join the government. They will also join the presidential election. I will not hastily say if that is going to be tomorrow or the day after. That is very evident in the discussions that are being held between the president and the opposition. According to the discussions that was held with us, members of the opposition will definitely join the president. The president will contest the next election as a common candidate following the formation of an alliance, and I think that everyone will join us on this.
The Samaga Jana Balawege responded to the opinions expressed on new posts and crossovers.
What we have repeatedly said is that no individual from our party will join the president. Since the beginning, we saw that MP Rajitha Siriwardena and Sarath Fonseca were focused elsewhere. The problem we had was not with them. We repeatedly said that the other MPs of our party will not in any way join the government. I would also like to say this at a time the elections are not far away. A large number of individuals from the ruling party have held discussions to join us. These discussions have been successful, so we expect them to join us at the right time.
speaking at the Padukka Madhuruwave Sobhita Mahavidyalaya in Homagama, where a smart classroom was provided, the leader of the opposition emphasized the importance of understanding the true situation before celebrating.
According to the information we have received, there are reports of reaching an agreement with bilateral creditors. If that's the case, we welcome it. However, remember, this is just one aspect of our national debt. Before we light crackers and celebrate, we should reflect on the situation. Our happiness should stem from successful debt restructuring that benefits the people and minimizes harm to them, while placing more burden on foreign creditors. Nevertheless, it is important to note that the debt restructuring process has already implemented significant cuts to the working people's EPF, ETF. At the same time, primary bond dealers, who are among the wealthiest in society, remain untouched.
Primary bond dealers
The Working Committee of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna convened yesterday. Parliamentarian Rohitabe Gunawardena expressed his views to the media.
The government is unstable. It is difficult to have faith in the government. We seem to be losing the very government that we created. The party is stable. It must be protected in order to maintain that. If the party is stable, strong governments can be formed.
The Sarva Jana Balaya expressed the following views.
Let's see whether the President will speak the truth about the good news that he claims to deliver tomorrow. Our defaulted external debt stands at $5.8 billion. Our total reserves amount to $5.4 billion. Unfortunately, this falls short of the outstanding defaulted loans. Within these reserves, there is a special deposit of $1.5 billion from China, which remains untouchable due to restrictions. We possess $4 billion in assets. However, our defaulted debt stands at $5.4 billion. Only domestic debt optimization has been implemented so far. International sovereign bond debt totaling $12.55 billion remains unresolved. From 2023 to March 2024, we borrowed an additional $1.723 billion without repaying existing loans. The net difference is a staggering $1.361 billion increase in debt.
ඇමරිකානු ඩොලර් මිලියන 1723 වෙනස ඇමරිකානු ඩොලර් මිලියන 1361යි කිසිම සංවර්ධන ව්‍යාපෘතියක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නේ නැහැ විතරක් නෙවෙයි ඒ අතරත් අපි තවත් නැහැ සුබයි.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe has revealed that while numerous government officials are diligently working on the Urumaya program to distribute freehold land deeds, a small faction is attempting to undermine these efforts.
President Wickremesinghe was at the Veerasinghe Stadium in Ampara, where symbolic land deeds were awarded to 1,758 out of 20,000 eligible recipients from 17 divisional secretariat divisions in the Ampara district under the Urumaya National Program, which aims to distribute 2 million freehold land deeds.
We are granting these land rights under the same laws by which the colonizers acquired the land. This is your legacy. We plan to distribute 2 million Urumaya freehold land deeds across the country. To facilitate this, we have taken steps to increase the staff of institutions, including the survey department. Government officials are working hard to ensure the success of this program, and many people are in support. However, reports have surfaced about a group of officials intimidating the public. These officials are questioning why these lands are being allocated, suggesting they could be reclaimed by the government. If any officer harasses you in this manner, please report them to your local MP. I have instructed MPs to investigate these officials and report back to me such subversive behaviors by a few officers who undermine the hard work and respect of their diligent colleagues, and it cannot be tolerated.
The US State Department in a report revealed that the government of Sri Lanka does not fully meet the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking. This was revealed 2024 Trafficking in Persons report.
The 2024 Trafficking in Persons report by the US State Department revealed that Sri Lanka does not fully meet the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking, but is making significant efforts to do so. It added that the government demonstrated overall increasing efforts compared with the previous reporting period. Therefore, Sri Lanka remained on Tier 2. These efforts included increasing convictions of labour traffickers and identifying and providing services to more trafficking victims. It noted that the government cancelled licenses and blacklisted more recruitment agencies allegedly responsible for facilitating trafficking. Officials also reported providing assistance to a greater number of migrant workers at Sri Lankan diplomatic missions abroad. However, the government did not meet the minimum standards in several key areas. The US State Department report noted that the government appeared unwilling or unable to hold allegedly complicit officials accountable for trafficking, even suspected cases of child sex trafficking. It said that the government did not cooperate with foreign law enforcement on trafficking cases, despite many such cases involving migrant workers abroad. It went on to note that although government agencies such as the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment and Department of Immigration and Immigration had anti-trafficking units and several agencies had anti-trafficking focal points, resource constraints continued to hinder investigations and anti-trafficking efforts. The report also mentioned that some Sri Lankan migrants reported indicators of fraudulent recruitment while travelling to Russia to enlist as foreign fighters in Russia's war in Ukraine. Government employees in many sectors engage in trade union actions today based on many demands, including the salary issue. The Joint Committee of Government Executives engaged in a protest at the Ministry of Finance in Columbo today.
The Joint Committee of Government Executives is engaging in a two-day sick leave protest today and tomorrow. It includes executive government officials of 18 professions, including the Joint Committee of Executives, state engineers, inland revenue, accountant, education, administration, system development, technical education, teacher educator, veterinary, agriculture, fisheries and labour commissioners. The Joint Committee of Executives visited the Ministry of Finance in Colombo to meet the Secretary and present their concerns demanding economic justice. Thereafter, Sri Lanka police escorted a group of representatives to the Finance Ministry while the rest protested along Lotus Road. The Joint Committee of Government Executives had met with an additional secretary and had given them an appointment to meet with the Finance Secretary, who is currently overseas.
Newsfirst with the people.
The World Bank has approved $150 million to improve primary healthcare services in Sri Lanka.
The World Bank's Board of Executive Directors has approved $150 million in financing for Sri Lanka to improve the quality and utilization of its primary healthcare services. The newly approved Sri Lanka Primary Healthcare System Enhancing Project will help improve quality of care and increase the use of primary medical care institutions, which provide essential health services to local communities. The previous World Bank-supported primary healthcare system strengthening project had already enhanced 550 primary medical care institutions with essential equipment, medicines, health workers and basic laboratory testing facilities. The new project will scale up these efforts to cover 100% of primary medical care institutions across all districts of Sri Lanka, expanding to over 1,000 facilities with a more comprehensive service package and improved quality of care. The project will support the provision of comprehensive primary healthcare services by expanding capacity to cover mental health, palliative, geriatric, rehabilitative and emergency care, which are particularly important for the aging population. The project will also bolster pandemic preparedness by expanding the capacity of primary medical care institutions to detect and respond to future infectious disease outbreaks. This will help Sri Lanka's healthcare system to adapt and respond effectively to new and emerging challenges.
Is the government considering lifting the restrictions on vehicle imports? The cabinet spokesperson clarified the position on this matter today.
No such decision had been made. As the Minister of Finance, the President has indicated that we hope to ease the current restrictions on vehicle imports starting from 2025. However, any relaxation of these restrictions will be based on extensive and careful studies. This is because our country is currently operating under an extended fund facility with the International Monetary Fund, which includes specific conditions and targets that we must meet. For example, we need to increase our gross foreign exchange reserves to $8 billion by 2025, $10 billion by 2026 and $14 billion by 2027. Therefore, we cannot make any changes that would deplete our foreign reserves. The President has appointed a committee under the Ministry of Finance to gather opinions and suggestions from relevant parties and develop a plan. No final decision has been made yet, and any easing of restrictions will be made accordingly.
At the Columbo port was opened today.
The opening ceremony of the plant quarantine centre under the programme to modernise the plant quarantine service was held today at the Columbo port. Korean Ambassador to Sri Lanka Lee Mi-yeon and Director General of Agriculture KNS Ranatunga were among those present.
This project is one of the Korean government's economic development cooperation project for developing countries. As an official development assistance ODA project implemented through Korea International Cooperation Agency (KOICA), aimed at supporting Sri Lanka to develop agricultural quality products and export. We will contribute to sustainable economic development as well as agriculture and overall environment protection. In order to achieve this goal, the activities of this project were performed in three major areas.
We are on a very ambitious program of making more room and making more facilities in the Port of Colombo. Port of Colombo has become one of the most important ports in the Indian Ocean, and our transshipment is going up day by day. We are also developing our port to match all other ports in the region. So we need a port community system, which we have called for. The World Bank has assisted us in the process, and we will be establishing the port community system, which will also be linked to this project also. Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe's vision for the people of this country, especially for the farmers, is the modernization of agriculture. We are very primitive in our agriculture. So therefore, modernizing the agriculture as well as the export-oriented agriculture is a must.
The Inaugural Awareness Program for Expectant Mothers, organized by Rebecca Lee, listed under ICL, which is part of the Capital Maharaja Group, was held today.
The Inaugural Awareness Program for Expectant Mothers was held at the Baddegama Town Hall. The event was held under the theme Mausenehasai Darupetiyage Arakshawai. The expectant mothers who attended the event were educated on the variety of subjects, including early childhood development and nutrition of children. Entertainment items were also included as part of the agenda of the event.
Clean water is a basic human right, but for 500 families in Galambindunuvaba, it was a privilege. Now, a new water purification system ensures a vital resource, leaving a legacy of well-being for generations to come.
Up next is The World Today.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been freed from prison in the United Kingdom and is travelling home to Australia after he agreed to plead guilty to a single charge of breaching the espionage law in the United States. Assange will plead guilty to one count of conspiracy to obtain and disclose classified US national defence documents. He was freed from the UK's high-security Belmarsh prison on Monday and taken to the airport from where he flew out of the country. Assange will appear at a court in Saipan, a US Pacific territory, on Wednesday, where he will be sentenced to 62 months of the time already served. He will return to Australia after the hearing, the WikiLeaks statement added, referring to the hearing in Saipan. Assange rose to prominence with the launch of WikiLeaks in 2006, creating an online whistleblower platform for people to submit classified material such as documents and videos anonymously. Footage of a US Apache helicopter attack in Baghdad, which killed a dozen people, including 2 journalists, raised the platform's profile, while the 2010 release of hundreds of thousands of classified US documents on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a trove of diplomatic cables, cemented its reputation. WikiLeaks published material about many countries, but it was the US during the administration of former President Donald Trump that decided to charge him in 2019 with 17 counts of breaching the Espionage Act. A major fault forced a Korean Air flight to suddenly descend 26,900 feet in only 15 minutes, leaving in 17 passengers requiring hospital treatment. The midday emergency last Saturday caused the Taiwan-bound Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft to be diverted back to Korea. Almost 50 minutes after taking off from the Incheon International Airport, a fault in the pressurization system of Korean Air flight KE-189 triggered alarms inside the plane. Some passengers reported being affected by hyperventilation and ear pain. The aircraft was diverted back to Incheon and landed safely more than 3 hours after it took off. Korean Air said 17 passengers required treatment for minor injuries in hospital and were later discharged.
Afghanistan has realized cricketing history, reaching the Final Four of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup. This will be Afghanistan's first appearance at the semi-finals of a major ICC event.
Rashid Khan won the toss for Afghanistan and they opted to bat first. It took no time for the drama to commence. Rashid had also hit a 10-ball 19-run cameo with the bat, which took Afghanistan beyond the 100-run total. Afghanistan posted 115 runs for the loss of 5 wickets. Before Bangladesh could respond, heavy rain affected the match. Despite Litton Das carrying the bat to the end with a batting half-century, Rashid Khan's 4-wicket haul inspired Afghanistan to victory, defending a low total. Bangladesh were bowled out for 105 runs in 17.5 overs. Afghanistan sealed a famous win by 8 runs via DLS method in the dramatic rain-affected Super 8 encounter against Bangladesh.
From Kabul to Kandahar, they'll all be celebrating. Have a look at them.
Thousands of Afghanistan supporters took to the streets to celebrate the win.
The European Space Agency recently shared a high-resolution image of Adams Bridge, a chain of shoals located in the northern region of the Sea of Sri Lanka, linking Talemana with India's Dhanushkodi.
We leave you tonight with this breathtaking image. Thank you very much for tuning in to Primetime News on TV1. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.